Okay. Hello again, everyone. Hi, hello, and welcome. I know I'm back. Third time today, right? This is so I just randomly picked up a piece of the deck to hold up a card for the thumbnail. And it's the Empress. Well, the first three cards, the Empress, the Angel, and the Emperor. Temperance in the middle, pouring between both of them. Why? It feels like a meeting between that masculine and that feminine energy in a way that leads to creation. Right? Because that's what they do. Right? You put an emperor and an empress together, and they give you some children. Four of Wands with the King of Pentacles, but this King of Pentacles is the Archangel of Mysteries. With the that's it. That's what happens between the Emperor and the Empress. The demiurge. It brings into reality something that which something. It gives birth to something in reality, but it's mysterious. Don't necessarily know what they're creating right now. Anyway, this is the part where I actually pull the cards from the fortune teller spread. I have them laid out, so we're just gonna go for it. This will be one. Oh, there's two for one. Oh, it's a 10 card spread, so that's perfect. Okay. I got positions like 1 through 9 figured out. I was like, I don't know where I would put the 10th card. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'll get the 10th card after. Bottom of the deck is the Tower. I love the Tower for this because in this deck we see the Axe of Shiva, and the Axe of Shiva removes corruption. So it feels like there's maybe been something that we've been holding on to in the Department of Cups that it's not, it blocks the flow. It creates a damning energy, and it's the Axe of Shiva that busts it up. Like for me personally, it was probably some judgmental. I don't want to, it was being judgmental, okay? Sometimes you just got to own up to when you become the thing that you didn't ever want to be. And it was like being so judgmental that for me, it introduced, sometimes it made it difficult for me to incorporate the human element of people. And in my mind, it's like, even if I am judgmental, even if I am critical of something, I try to always keep in mind the humanizing factor that, we're all just down here doing our best. And I think sometimes I would forget that. And I don't like that. So for me, personal example, it's something that's been almost, it's like it tried to make itself apparent to me, but I kept reasoning in a way until finally one day I was like, you know what? That is who I've become. Wow. Never wanted that to happen, but here I am. So anyway, let's get into this. So this is the fortune teller spread. It's based around the suit of cups. The theme is the Leviathan, the 10 of cups. And so it almost carries this energy of, if you're going to like face the Leviathan, or if you're going to go down into the depths far enough to where the Kraken sleeps, you're going to need a lot of oxygen. So we're picking up cups from 1 to 9 to face it at the 10. That's what this is going to be. Oh, I kind of saw it. I'll close my eyes. You're going to see it, but I'm not. And we'll see how close I get to this. That's the Kraken that lies at the bottom. This is us getting prepared for that moment, basically. The 9, it's a 9 and a 1, a 9 plus 1 spread. So I was like, oh, we'll just go through the suit of cups. So that feels right. So sitting at the ace, we have the demiurge and the ferryman. The demiurge holds our ability to create our lives in the way that we want. The ferryman, it's like the demiurge builds the dream, the ferryman gets us to it or gets it to us. In this Four of Wands, we see both the priest and the archer, the warrior and the lover, the fighter and the believer. And then we have the ferryman here that's trying to direct it. And so if there is like unresolved things within our emotions, our things that we can't accept about how our life is or what our life has become, then this is an energy of like maybe beginning to see how what we've gone through positions us to create even more. In the space of the two is the Five of Swords, the Hector. The Two of Cups is a card of seeing eye to eye more than anything. It's a card of recognizing what lies within another. With this Five of Swords, it introduces conflict. So now we have a 4-5-6 between the first two cards when it comes to the Suit of Cups. The 4, the 5, and 6, it's an energy of not being in a space to receive something, ruminating on why we didn't or couldn't, and then imagining a life past. But it's almost this energy of like, it wasn't like, even if you took it, you still would have lost it. It wasn't presented to you to take it in that moment. It was presented to you for you to begin to change how you see things. And so, with the Five of Swords, with the Hector sitting in the space of the Two of Swords, in this journey, it could be us within ourselves, since the Tower is at the bottom, or us within others, realizing things that we don't want in any kind of relationship because it invalidates another in some way, or the self. This will come together. In the space of the Three of Cups, community is the Chariot. So, with the 2 and the 3, it's carrying an energy again that's sort of similar to the Four of Wands and the Six of Swords. It's like if you can't find that recognition, then you go out and you create spaces where you can find it, or you venture beyond. And one of the blessings of the current age is that if you can't find like minded people or people who will appreciate you within your immediate environment, you can find it virtually somewhere. I think this is also the creation of healthy boundaries, new habits, new patterns, new ways of going about talking or connecting with people that promotes healthier connections. Sitting at the space of the 4 is the outlaw. This, it's coming in the energy of like there was something, again, it's the Four of Cups. There was something that the divine presented you that was of value, was of merit, was of worth, was what it is that you'll eventually end up accepting. But it came at a time or in a way that you weren't able to accept. Maybe you couldn't see it. Maybe it caused some internal rumblings within you. And so maybe up until this point, it was a like, other people don't do this, other people don't do that. But when you hit the outlaw at the space of the 4, then it's like all of a sudden all of that is turned around back on you. And so now we go inside to not only discover how we do that to other people, but to discover how we do that to ourselves. Now, after that is the 5. And the 5 is sitting with the Sacred Fire. Now, this is the card that kept coming up with the lovers in the previous video that was the building of this. This is the card of recognition. And that's what the 5 is. I think that's why the 5 has the language that it has, because we realize and recognize what we rejected at the 4. And again, with this outlaw turning everything in on ourselves, it's not to turn us against ourselves, but this is the beginning of a journey of self-love and self-acceptance. Because it's like before this, the burden of loving us fell on other people. But now we realize that it falls on us to love ourselves. And it's like, if you're like interacting with folks, they should be able to love you, right? But it's the responsibility of loving. And this is sort of sitting in between the 5 of Swords and the Chariot. What I like about this, though, it's the defiance. It's like, even if I don't find anyone else to appreciate me or whatever, I'm going to do it for myself. And then we come down to the 6, which is the Magus. Now, when we create something, it's easier to begin creating something anew with the foundation of something past. I know for myself personally, there were like, whenever I would come into a space of like wanting companionship or thinking I was ready for a relationship, there would be people in the past. I remember it was this one time period specifically. There were people in the past, and I'm like, well, if like, and I was trying to put them into this space that they never would have fit in. And so it was this constant like, but I didn't have that relationship with this person. But that isn't even something that this person showed an interest in doing or being. And so for me, it was realizing that like there wasn't anyone to put in that spot. And so then came it came to who is it? Right? If it's none of them, who is it? But I think the emphasis here, it's on creation. Creating the scenario in which we accepted. That's why the 4 and the 6 are connected. So the way I did this is I tried to make 10. So I guess I could show you the picture. Let's see. It ain't necessarily perfect. Well, it goes across 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. The 5 sits in between the 2 and the 3. 2 plus 3 plus 5 is 10. The 4 sits below the 6. The 7 is below the 3. The 8 is below the 2. The 9 is below the 1. And so these two, from that 4 at the 6, we begin to tap more into what could have been possible with what we with what we were presented at that 4. And so here, it's like all of the disappointments, all of the setbacks, all of the things in life that made us feel isolated. This is us creating that situation and scenario where we find acceptance, where we can be more authentically who we are, where we can speak our truth and not be vilified for it. I think that's the word I want. What is this? At the 7 is the 2 of Swords. So the 7 of Cups is all about us trying to fulfill what it is that we now know we want. Now, we're going from the 6 to the 7. We probably realize, well, maybe not probably. It's like maybe the past didn't work, so we're looking for something new. Or maybe the past we think would work, and again, it could work. So we go back. So now the 2 of Swords is coming in under this Chariot. And so it is a 7 of Cups energy, but it's one that is more, it's less focused on what it experiences here, and it's more focused on an element of connection and of resonance. And so this Seven of Swords, or this Seven of Cups, doesn't necessarily go through every single cup. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But now, building off of the Chariot at the 3, it's like moving forward, but moving forward in a wise way. And so sometimes it may involve an element of patience, or it may involve an element of daring and boldness. Here it's almost like, why don't we try doing something in a new way or in a different way? It's a space of exploration. At the 8, the erudite is here. The 8 for me, I guess now it carries an energy of practice. The 8 of Cups is when we realize the things that didn't work, the things that aren't working, which more often than not is what we're comfortable with, right? Because the 8 of Cups is typically a card of like leaving what you're emotionally comfortable with to seek a brand new emotional experience or a brand new type of connection. And it makes sense because that would be one reason why we rejected the offer at the 4. We already had our establishment of 3 cups. We already think we know what works for us. And so anything that exists outside of that, we kind of sort of naturally turn away. But that's why it's important for us to leave our comfort zone at the 8. And I think after the 7, we really discover that. It's like I keep making the comfortable choices, or I keep making the choices that seem right based off of where I was, but it always, like, it never works out. I think the erudite, hermit energy coming in under this Hector, it's a softening energy. Because the 5 of Swords, it's very reactive, and it can sometimes be overly reactive. But the erudite, it brings in an element of wisdom. It brings in an element of control, of a proper amount of force. And so I think it makes us not as quick to judge ourselves, to be harsh with ourselves, or to do that to others. Or what it'll also do is it can get us to be less quick to take things out on people that don't necessarily deserve it. It helps us find the root of certain blockages. And once you find the root of the blockage, you can remove it, and then you'll be ready to accept what it was that you weren't before, right? Theoretically. Oh, look at this. At the 9 of Cups, it's the 4 of Cups. But now it's holding this energy, especially having gone through this, of removing those root blockages, of being able to better separate what is your personal beliefs centered around you and other people, and what are those that you've been conditioned to believe. Now, from this grounded space, the divine can again present us with what it is. Now, those 3 cups, they're across the river. So we've emotionally gone on a journey that sort of leaves what it is that was our foundation behind. And it's the hollow void. I think it's a very difficult thing to begin to recognize, accept, and work on. That space where we were always sort of lacking, and realizing how we were trying to get it to, how we were trying to fill it using things that never really fulfilled it. And it's like when you begin to give to yourself, then it opens you up to receive in a way that you weren't necessarily able to receive before. Because now, instead of receiving with the hopes or with the goal of feeling that which you can only feel. You receive and it brings you extra. It's like you're no longer trying to put the square peg into the round hole, because now you're the only one that has the square pegs or the round pegs. So you put your round pegs into that round hole and you put the square pegs wherever the square pegs go. You're no longer trying to force things that don't necessarily work. And that's this energy here. This was the forcing of a community, the forcing of a connection, forcing either through force externally exerted or internally exerted. Either trying to force other people to be something or trying to force yourself to be something that you're not. But it's resolved here. It's like you realize that that doesn't necessarily work. And so the 10 now comes out as the dark horse. The dark horse with the tower at the bottom. Ooh! The force, strength is behind this. Strength and the Three of Pentacles, the Mason. And the Page of Swords is behind this. This is the strength to be yourself authentically, the strength to accept others as they are authentically. That puts you in the space to build something that only the two of you, or the three of you, or the four of you can build when you're fully participating. It's like if you're working on a team and you have different specialists, but you're working for the type of boss that isn't very receptive to new ideas, or someone doesn't necessarily think their ideas holds any weight. And so it's like the solution never presents itself, or the solution is never presented because there's the person with it who never speaks, or there's an environment where speaking isn't welcome. But this is the resolution of that. It reminds me of when I participated in evaluating a group interview for RA selection, and they were presented with the challenge to build the tallest structure that they could, right? And there was this one girl. She was my favorite. She was awesome. She was like literally perfect. Her name was Tiffany. I was like, oh my gosh, Tiffany, I think I love you. Like I don't, but like you're awesome. I don't know if she got it or not. Um, but she was like, well, I'm not an engineer, and I went to an engineering school. It's this kind of dumb thing where the engineers put themselves above everyone else. And then within engineering, it's like, well, our discipline is more challenging than your discipline. And I remember there was like a business related competition that I wanted to enter, but they restricted people from the College of Engineering from entry. And I was like, well, technically, I'm in the College of Agriculture since I'm in like ag bioengineering. And they're like, okay. But then when they told me in the email, it was like, we don't want people from other disciplines to feel um, at a disadvantage because they're not an engineer or they're not an engineering major. And I was like, you know what? Could I do this on a technicality? Sure. But will I know? But anyway, back to Tiffany. She was like, I'm not an engineer, but I think we could do this. And it was actually her idea that brought the group together because with all the egos in there, they couldn't decide. And I like in that situation, it's like you want to stand out as a leader or something, but it's also important to be a team player. And her idea, it was like, well, like here's this pretty big thing literally on the box. Why don't we just like try to recreate this or use that as a framework to make something tall? And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's an amazing idea. Sometimes the solutions are that apparent, but because of how we view and value ourselves in comparison to everyone else, we may not necessarily do it or get there. This is having the strength to have a voice regardless. That's what all of this is leading you to. It's the courage to be seen in spaces where you'd rather hide. But like, this is the dark horse's game to win. The only way the dark horse doesn't win is if they don't participate or show up. What is this? I don't know. I don't know what this is or was. I hope y'all found, if you watch this, I hope you find something in it. I think overall, it's a journey of learning how we limit and hide ourselves when it comes to other people. Even when it comes to working with spirit or the divine in a certain way. Because it's my belief that the divine prepares us for certain things in ways that we need to be prepared. And so it's like the divine, once we've done enough preparation for the thing, it puts us in a space to receive it. But we can like continuously defer to spirit or continuously defer to someone else. Like, am I doing it right? Like, what's the next move? What's the next step? And it's this energy of like, you have everything that you need within you to do this. And for whatever reason, what's most important now is that you do this to the best of your ability, or to at least try before you ask. And it reminds me, I've been watching this show. It's a kid show. It's called Heroes. And there's a dude with a paper airplane that makes decisions. And there's one character who was like, well, if the paper airplane can solve questions or problems that we don't know, like, why didn't we just use that to find what we're trying to find? And he was like, it doesn't work in instances and situations like that. And like, you don't pull out the paper airplane before you even try. And it was like, it's only things that we're not in a space to make the decision of. But it's almost this energy of like, you've been prepared and preparing to make these choices and decisions, to embrace these levels of connection. This could even be a deepening level of connection with spirit, where you're sort of downloading or getting not necessarily like higher concept ideas, but it's like you get enough to work with what you have. And again, it's something about coming up with your solution in the process of doing so. And maybe in the past we were a little bit forceful with trying to get what we want. Who isn't or who wouldn't be? Or maybe we weren't enough. But the desire is here. It looks like the ability, the capability is here. It just requires us to maybe have a different view or perspective on what things have been. Because honestly, it feels like whatever you need, you've had all along. Maybe you didn't see it, or you didn't value it, or you didn't know how valuable it is because of how much it was dismissed. But it's time for you to begin to see yourself clearly. And once you begin to see yourself clearly, it's time for you to begin to act from that space, regardless of what the opposition seems like. And it feels like there may be spaces where you expect to find opposition, but instead you find welcome. Because there are people who value people who think differently. There are people who know the strength of diversity, of diverse backgrounds, diverse opinions, diverse uh, sort of like even educational, right? Because it's almost like the more complicated things get, the more learned we are, the easier it is for us to sometimes overlook the easy or the simple things. It's like when you're doing like high level physics or math and you like forget to carry over a negative sign or something like that. But like if you had just learned that, you would be a lot more careful to make sure that like your negative signs carry over. I do that all the time. Not all the time, but I hate when it's something simple like that. It's like, oh my gosh, I just forgot to carry over the negative sign. It's like, yeah, I know I have the right answer. Oh my gosh. Like I remember I took what was it? It was like intro to electronic systems or something. I literally just put it on my resume, so I should know. But for some reason, when we had to make a little robot car thing that would follow a certain path and that would stop a certain distance from the finish line to collect something, to collect a certain number of something, and then it would proceed. And so we used, what was it? Like a motion sensor. It was a motion sensor controller to check the distance from the finish line. And for some reason, when I was working on the code on my computer, I had to use a greater than sign. But in the lab, it was a less than sign. I had to flip the sign. And so I got it to work at home. And then I go in and I'm like, I don't know why this isn't working. Like, I finished the program, spent literally the whole class. I had to go, I had to leave. That was like the last day to get our robots to work. And as I'm leaving, I'm like, oh my, like, there were two other people in the group. I was like, oh my gosh, like I forgot to flip the sign. So I just texted him. I was like, in the program, like when you get to that block, flip the greater than signs to less than, and it should work. And it worked, and we like aced it. But for me, it was something that I didn't even remember until I removed myself from that situation. I don't know. And then it was like so simple. I was like, wait, I already knew this. How did I forget? That's why I made integrate my word for 2020. It's like I already knew this. How did I forget? How do I keep forgetting these things that I already know? That's why, like, I hold the opinion that making the healed choice is almost more important than the things that we do to heal, because it's making the healed choice that establishes the pattern. It's like it reworks the root. We're rewiring the brain to not automatically jump to one association when we're presented with something. And I think that's the thing about the Seven of Wands. It's the practice of building. It's the practice of creating new associations, of rewiring ourselves neurally. The brain is like what neuroplasticity is a thing. The two cards that just came out, it's the Holy Water, Ace of Cups with that Dark Horse. This is that it's an energy of, it's like when we elevate ourselves above that, we're even closer to receiving all that is from the divine. And I feel like this is, not only is it, I feel like it's more about challenging the self than challenging others. But it's challenging the self through the space of others. Because when it comes to cups, things are so fluid that they're not necessarily super easy to separate and delineate. And that's why it's like you can get to the 8 or the 9 of cups and have issues all the way back from like the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. Because it continues to flow down the path. Bottom of the deck is the sun, which is the warrior. The warrior, the sun is the warrior. That's what this person is becoming. They're becoming the warrior. But it's not becoming the warrior in a way that is like hyper aggressive. There's still compassion there. And that compassion piece is just as important when you are sort of staking your claim. And so it's the warrior that is able to master that love for self and love for others. but still do what they need to do. And that's what this is preparing us for. We don't have to be cold or turn bitter, or we don't need a villain in order for us to stand up for ourselves or to do what we feel that we need to do. And we can do things in love and with love and have it reciprocated likewise. So that's what I got. I don't know what this is or was. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this, though. I hope you got something in here that was somewhat helpful at the very least, and that you're doing all that you need to do to get all that you want out of life. Even the hard bits, the challenging bits, the difficult bits, because it's going through the challenge that prepares us to, do it easier, or for it to be easier in the future. Because it's not that things necessarily stop happening, but the more you do it, the more you have a habit and a pattern of getting it done. Right? Or something. I don't know. Bye.